Welcome to Conversations. I'm Muqtadar Khan, your host, and today I want to talk about MAGA rebels. There is a rebellion that has been brewing in MAGA for a while now. People who are his most ardent supporters, people who campaigned for Donald Trump for nearly 5 years, people who were fully convinced that Donald Trump was the best choice for their ideology, the America First ideology, make America great again. They are now rebelling against Donald Trump because they feel that he has betrayed the MAGA cause. The main proponents of this MAGA rebellion are, as you know, Tucker Carlson, who has a show both on X as well as on YouTube. And then you have Megan Kelly, who is also now a YouTuber. She used to be one of the leading hosts on Fox News and even went to NBC for a while. And then you have somebody like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who was a congresswoman from Georgia and who was one of the most ardent supporters of Donald Trump. Not only that, but one of the most vocal ideologues for the MAGA ideology, and she was not shy to and in fact, she is not shy to announce herself as a Christian nationalist. She believes in America first. She believes, I guess, in a Christian America. And then, of course, the lesser known but now famous Joe Kent, the former uh, director of the National Counterterrorism uh, Center, who just resigned as a dissenting voice against the justification for the war on Iran. So, for the last 3, 4 months, or in fact, a little bit more, we have seen increasingly people who have supported Donald Trump, at least in the alternative media, in the social media, in the blogosphere, people who are podcasters and people who are YouTubers. Some of them have been very vocally critical of Donald Trump, or at least some of his policies, while continuing to say that they think that he is the best choice for America, best choice for the Republicans. And they continue to maintain that they love him and are big supporters of him. And some of them are also very close to him. So we occasionally see that they are they show up with Donald Trump either in the White House or at various public forums that he does, or at his house in Mar-a-Lago in Florida. So, what are they really opposed to? So, I think the disenchantment with Donald Trump began with the Epstein files. So, one of the things that Donald Trump and others continued to campaign on was that Epstein was a pedophile who provided young girls to Democrats, who then preyed on these young girls, raped them. It's statutory rape anyway if you have sex with somebody who is less than 18 years old in the United States. And so these elite Democrats were running a pedophilia ring. And that was the assumption. And Donald Trump said that as soon as he became president, he would release all the Epstein files. And you should remember that Epstein was kind of arrested and died in prison during Donald Trump's first term. So if there was anything to release, he could have released all those files in his first term. But anyway, he campaigned all those years while Joe Biden was president, saying that the Democrats are essentially hiding the extent of uh, pedophilia among American elite because they assumed that most of them were Democrats. And so not only Donald Trump, but others like Bangino, who became the deputy director of FBI, Kash Patel, who became the director. These guys, their single most important goal was to talk about the Epstein files. And so once they became president, and Donald Trump becomes president, appoints these people in. Pam Bondi, the attorney general, says, "Oh, the files are on my table. I'm just going to release them tomorrow." And then, boom, suddenly silence. And they say, "Oh, there's nothing in the files." First, they lie by saying there's nothing in the files. Can you go back and listen to how the Trump administration lied to the MAGA crowd, to their own followers, saying there's absolutely nothing in the file? And then, thanks to Marjorie Taylor Greene and Massey, who voted for it. I think Nancy. Anyway, one of the two Republicans voted for it, and so those files, uh, the Congress forced the administration to release those files. And once the files started coming, oh my God, we see millions and millions of files. There are people, there are British royalty who are losing their titles. There are people in very important places in Europe who are losing their jobs. But no American has yet been arrested or prosecuted, even though it is very apparent from some of the emails, etc., that perhaps even 1,000 plus girls, underage girls, have been exploited by Epstein and his network, which included very prominent people like Bill Clinton and, of course, Donald Trump, who seems to be very buddy-buddy with Epstein. So it has become very apparent to everybody that the Trump administration has tried its best to hide and cover up all those who were involved with Epstein. Now, there are two theories about it. One, that some of the people that the Trump administration is trying to protect by keeping the Epstein files hidden are billionaires who are close friends of Donald Trump and given him a lot of money for his campaign. And the other theory is that Epstein was essentially uh, an Israeli spy who basically provided young girls to all this American elite and has then blackmailed them and was involved in influence peddling and making them all pro-Israel, etc. That is the other theory that some people are expounding. Whatever it is, this refusal by the Trump administration to release the Epstein files right away really upset a lot of people in the MAGA crowd, because this was promised to them and they suddenly realized that the Trump administration was reneging on this promise. In fact, there are some people who believe that it is to cover up and take attention away from the Epstein fiasco that Donald Trump has started this war with Iran. And of course, now this war with Iran has really, really upset many of the prominent voices in MAGA, especially Tucker Carlson, then Marjorie Taylor Greene, etc. They feel that Donald Trump, who repeatedly promised, literally thousands of times during the election campaign, that there will be no new wars, no endless wars in the Middle East, there will be no regime change wars. He promised no new wars. He also made pronouncements such as, I will end the Russia-Ukraine war in 24 hours. And he basically said all the previous American presidents were dumb, they could not negotiate, and therefore they had to go to war. And since Donald Trump is such a great negotiator, he would never need to go to war. He would just resolve by, I guess, negotiations, if he thinks he's able to get a better deal. So Donald Trump promised his crowd that there will be no. But the biggest and overall promise for Donald Trump was that America and American policies would be MAGA, make America great, and his entire ideology is America first. No matter what the issue is, whether it's trade, whether it's tariffs, whether it's the environment, whether it's national security, America will not be fighting wars for other countries. America will be essentially defending American policy will be about America first. So that was his goal, and that is what he promised. Because there was a lot of critique among many Americans, including myself, that this whole obsession with the war with Ukraine and this endless amount of money and weapons that America has provided to Ukraine was not really in America's interest. We are not interested in the territorial integrity of Ukraine, going back and getting back territory it lost in 2000 and I guess 14, Crimea, and then subsequently after the war started in 2022. But nevertheless, the Europeans want to fight it out, and most of the weapons and money was coming from the US. And the quality of life in America was declining domestically. The cost of living has gone up. In fact, if you ask me one single most important reason why Zohran Mamdani won the election in New York, it's because life in America is becoming simply unaffordable to many people. It's highly pronounced in urban areas like New York. And Mamdani was just focused on affordability, the crisis of affordability. And instead of working on that, reducing inflation, creating new jobs, improving the economy, Donald Trump is now just doing whatever Israel wants. He's been at war endlessly, obsessed with Gaza, trying to create some kind of Riviera in Gaza, trying to rescue Netanyahu from his legal problems at home, putting pressure on the Israeli president to pardon Netanyahu, and then attacking Iran, and then claiming that he has fully destroyed Iran's nuclear capabilities. I have obliterated it. Even then, most of the MAGA crowd was against him, saying that is not in the interest of the United States. And now this war, which is increasingly looking like an endless war, we are into the fourth week, and the U.S. is sending more troops, and now the U.S. has asked the Congress for $200 billion more after spending over $20 billion on this war already. So the MAGA crowd, I consider most of the MAGA crowd to be pretty stupid and dumb. I'm sorry to say that. Because if they cannot see that the guy that they elected is just doing whatever Netanyahu wants in the Middle East, he's not doing anything at home. In fact, his tariff strategy to bring manufacturing to at home was stupid from the beginning. I have said it so many times on my show that yes, manufacturing could come back to the United States, but it will be only through robotics and not through jobs. There will be no jobs for human beings in factories because it's simply not possible anymore. And there are no new jobs being created in American factories. Donald Trump cannot stand up and say, I created 300,000 new jobs or 500,000 new factory jobs in this country. So he has failed on the domestic agenda. Forget about inflation. Now, with the price of oil going through the roof, it's nearly $1 extra per gallon now. It was the average. I think that in Delaware, for example, oil was about $2.90 per gallon. Now it's about $3.80 yesterday. So it's about 90 cents up, nearly 30% increase in. So this is going to cause profound inflation. So people like Tucker Carlson, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Joe Kent, etc., they have 3 or 4 issues with Donald Trump and against which they are risking everything because Tucker Carlson feels that he's going to be arrested soon because the CIA has been looking into him and he feels that he could be arrested. I don't know how the CIA would arrest him. It's not allowed to operate domestically. But anyway, the CIA has been looking into him. And so they probably will pass it on to FBI counterterrorism, and he will be accused of some kind of collusion with foreigners, and he will be arrested. And then there are people like Mike Huckabee, the U.S. ambassador to Israel, and if you listen to him, you'd be confused. You would think he's the Israeli ambassador to America. People like that collude with foreign countries, foreign spies all the time, as far as Israel is concerned, and they are never accused of being anti-national. But Tucker feels that he's going to be arrested for doing that. We will see what happens. Donald Trump has targeted all of them now. Marjorie Taylor Greene, who was such a strong supporter of Donald Trump, she quit the Congress. Now there are rumors that she may run for president. I don't think so. But Marjorie Taylor Greene feels that she can no longer support Donald Trump because he has abandoned all the values. The biggest issue for them is that instead of pursuing America First or MAGA policies, Donald Trump is following Maga, which is Make Israel Great Again policies. And so for example, when the director of Kent, who was the director of the National Counterterrorism, resigned, I did a show on that just 2 days ago. When he resigned, in his letter, he said that there was no immediate threat to the United States. And so the only reason why the United States has gone to war against Iran is because Donald Trump came under pressure from Netanyahu and Israel and Israel's lobby in America. So AIPAC and others who advocate for Israel constantly, they are very rich billionaires with hundreds of millions of dollars. In fact, in just recent elections last week in Chicago, AIPAC was proudly claims that they defeated 2 candidates and two of their candidates won elections thanks to the money that they spent, more than $20 million in the Chicago elections. So, so the main issue that they feel is that Trump is focused more on and doing more for Israel than he's focused on America, because for some reason they feel that the United States policies are now fully colonized and occupied by Israel, by a foreign country. So it's not just these four. These are the four big voices who have opened the door. There are lots of people and lower tier people in the Maga ecosystem, and especially on their YouTube system, that who are making this argument that one, Donald Trump betrayed MAGA by simply not refusing to release all of Epstein's file. Even now, millions are there. Even now, many of the perpetrators' names are redacted. They are trying to hide who were the people who were exploiting these young women. And then there is also this accusation that this war was completely dictated by Israel. Marco Rubio nearly said so publicly, that they were pushed into this war by Israel. So, but there's something more going on. They are, especially with Tucker Carlson, he's doing things which are very well thought out. For example, he is bringing in Christians from those who live under Israeli occupation, not just Muslims but Christians in West Bank and Gaza, and he's been talking about how Israel has been ill-treating Christians in the Holy Land, how the churches are being demolished, bombed, and how they are treated very badly, even though America is a Christian majority country. Tucker Carlson says Donald Trump is a Christian nationalist, but he seems to be ignoring the fact that Israel is oppressing Christians as well as Muslims. And then he also is constantly talking about uh, even questioning the biblical support that Israel has in the United States. There are fools like Ted Cruz who know neither the Middle East nor their religion, it seems, and who believe that the Bible says that they should support Israel. And so he's questioning even that. So he's going a bit more deeper than the rest of them. The rest of them are simply saying, look, America needs to focus on American needs. We need to get things done here, which we are not. The inflation is high. There are no jobs. And American economy is suffering. Most working class Americans are suffering. I did a recent check and I found that if you look at the top 50% of Americans, their household incomes are about $150,000 to $180,000, and then if you look at the bottom half, it's about 30. So the difference between the top half of America and the bottom half is 6 times. So the top half is 6 times richer than the bottom half, and it's the bottom half that is really suffering. Their salaries are not increasing. Number one. Uh, it seems in the last 8 to 10 years, the salaries in America have grown by only 37%, whereas rent, healthcare, college, education, gas, food, groceries, mortgages, all of this have grown up by more than 60%. So the cost of living has gone up twice as much as earnings and wages. And that is the crisis in America, that America is not a very happy place for most Americans. They're working harder, earning less. And it is very clear now that for a vast majority of Americans, some economists say about 80% of Americans' children who are growing up will not live as well as their parents do today. Young kids are having trouble finding jobs, so they're going to college, they're incurring a huge debt. About If you go to a good college, you can end up with $200,000 in debt and then no job after that. So you are coming back home and then staying with your parents and being a burden on your parents, and then looking and doing odd jobs. So what's the point of going to a top school in the country, incurring a debt of 200,000 when there are no jobs in this country, because all jobs have been sent abroad? And that is why there's so much of anger against H-1B, where people abroad from India who are basically willing to do jobs at a much lower price than Indians. H-1B was created to bring highly talented people but they are trying to bring in anybody who is willing to do a particular job here. So there are a lot of confusion about what these policies are. But nevertheless, through offshoring, through other policies, we have sent literally millions of jobs to China and India and other parts of the global south. So Americans now find it difficult to get well paying jobs. And that is what Donald Trump was elected to focus on. That is what America First was supposed to be. And now all he seems to be doing is obsessed with Iran, trying to bring about regime change in Iran, trying to worry about Netanyahu's political career, worrying about Netanyahu's criminal career, defending him, trying to fight with, trying to get him a pardon. So it appears as if that Donald Trump has become Netanyahu's butler. I think every day in the morning he gets up and says, "Oh my God, which shoes of Netanyahu should I polish today? And which jacket of Netanyahu should I, press today, because Netanyahu has to go on TV and decide which other country he's going to bomb." And so he has basically diminished American image abroad, and basically spending billions of dollars, which could be spent at home. To give you one example, one economic issue here is the extension of subsidy for Obamacare. Okay, the Affordable Care Act requires the government to spend $30 billion to extend the subsidies for 2 more years. So, for example, people who are paying about $800 a month on their health care will now spend 2 to 3,000, will go bankrupt, and their retirement money is going to end without the subsidy from the government on the Obamacare. And the cost of that is 30 billion, and the Republicans have refused to pony that up. And now they have gone and, for Israel, spent $30 billion or $22 billion already. This war is costing $1 billion a day. And that is driving the MAGA crowd crazy, at least the elite who understand this. Most of the others are kind of dumb. And they just think, "Oh, he's such a great guy. Look how he talks. Look how he behaves. Look how he talks and insults educated people. He insults Ivy Leagues. How he's attacking and destroying American universities like Harvard and Columbia. All of these universities have also been targeted and attacked because there is criticism of Israel in these universities. Many people have been threatened to be deported because they criticize Israel. So it appears that everything that Donald Trump is now doing is for Israel, and that is driving these people crazy and stuff like that. And so it's very interesting to see how, if you go and look at Tucker Carlson's recent interview with the Economist editor, and all she wanted to know was, well, do you support Israel's right to exist? Whether it is Britain, whether it's all over Europe, all they're worried about is Israel's right to exist and nothing else. We never hear about any other country's right to exist. Does Iran have a right to exist? Who has asserted that they have a right to exist as a sovereign state? What about the Palestinians? What about the Kurds? So anyway, so there's this interesting development. We shall see as to how deep this runs and what will be its impact. The only way we will know that is by voter turnout in November, when we have the midterm elections. Right now, surveys are using manipulative ways in which it's like saying, you can always frame a question in a way that would get you the answer you want. So sometimes public opinion polls can be very deceptive and misleading. But nevertheless, consistently, there is strong support for this war among people who are Republicans. But overall in the country, the support is very low. Less than 50% Americans support this war. And Donald Trump's approval rating are stuck at 38%. And 58% or more disapprove of Donald Trump. So his approval ratings are around -20 and have been there for a while now. But I think the most compelling thing that is going to come out of this war is if it has a devastating impact on inflation and the global economy and also the US economy. If the GDP begins to look terrible or even goes into negative, then I think the MAGA rebels will do well. But nevertheless, quick summary. The reason why there's a rebellion in the MAGA is because people like Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, who are very popular, have millions of supporters. About 20 million people watch him on X, and nearly 5 to 10 million people watch him on YouTube. Tucker Carlson and others have been consistently saying that Donald Trump has betrayed the MAGA crowd, is not working for America anymore. He seems to be completely captured by Israel, and all he is doing is supporting Israel and working for Israel. We'll see what happens. So thank you for watching Conversations. I'm your host, Muqtadar Khan. Please subscribe to Conversations, like this video, press the bell icon, and don't forget to share this video with your socio-political network. I'll come back in half an hour, and I will do this show again in Hindi and Urdu. And I'll probably tell you a bit more about some of these candidates, because I'm assuming that most of the English-speaking audience of mine are familiar with who these people are. But do come back, and I will be doing this show in Hindi again. And that will be at 9:30 a.m. India time, 12 a.m. US time. Basically 30 minutes from now. And if there are any interesting questions or comments, I'll be happy to read and respond to them. I don't see many. Hello, hi, lots of highs. Pyasa Shaitan, one of the supporters of Conversations, is here. Welcome. Thank you very much. Sir, do you think we are nearing World War III? If not, will the end of the result in the nuclearization? Well, we are not in World War III, obviously. World wars are world wars because great powers are involved in it. Only the US is involved in this. Other great powers like China and Russia are not engaged in this war. So you can't call it a world war. And the war is restricted to a particular region. So you could call it a regional war. It's not a bilateral war, not a war between two countries, but it is a war between one country and probably 15, 20 countries. It has become a regional conflict. I think the Iranians probably will try their best to get a nuclear weapon. And look, I can tell you this much. The only reason the US has attacked them is because they don't have a nuclear weapon. No one thinks of attacking North Korea. And the Europeans and NATO will not attack Russia, no matter what Russia does, primarily because Russia has nuclear weapons. If you have nuclear weapons, you will not be attacked. And that is something to keep in mind. I guarantee you, if Iran had nuclear weapons, this would not have happened to them. Not getting nuclear weapons is the reason why they are being hammered and being destroyed. Their entire country is being destroyed by Israel and the United States. Many years ago, about 20 years ago, when we were talking about the axis of evil, I remember writing here, and I was actually more involved in the G.W. Bush administration. I engaged with the Bush administration at many levels, many parts of the government too. But I did say at this point, the eagerness with which the US is attacking Iraq tells me that Iraq does not have nuclear weapons. Because we knew for sure that North Korea had. So no one ever talked about attacking North Korea. They only talked about Iran and Iraq, and that is also partly because of Israel. North Korea doesn't threaten Israel. Maybe the US will attack North Korea if it threatens Israel, nuclear weapons or not. Who knows? Because the American elite, whether it's Schumer or Biden or Trump or Hakeem Jeffries or senators like Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, or even Lindsey Graham, all of this take millions of dollars from the Israeli lobby, and they just become mouthpieces for Israel in this country. They're all foreign agents. Anyway, thank you for watching Conversations. Please subscribe to the channel if you have not already done so, and I'll see you soon tomorrow. For those who like to watch the Hindi Urdu version of Conversations, I'll see you in half an hour. Bye.